Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas and this is the Ultimate Unity tutorial and welcome to episode 4. So this time we're going to carry on with some C# coding. We'll look at some sound effects and we'll have a look at some water. We'll also look at creating simple objects which actually represent something in the game, i.e. a wall. So let's start with something real simple in this. Let's import a sound object. So in our assets folder down here, let's right click, create a new folder, and let's just call this audio. And within that same folder, let's create some more folders. Well, we'll create at least one for now because that's going to be our effects folder. So create new folder and let's call it just FX. And I'm going to drag and drop a little audio clip straight into here. And this is available on the website for free. If you head over there, go to downloads and assets section, head to the Ultimate Unity tutorial, and you can download it there under episode 4. So the idea of what this is it's going to be a game object that we can play when we want to trigger it. I.e., if we want to collect this little gem here, when we walk into it, it disappears and plays a sound. That's what we're going to aim for here. So what we'll want to do is we'll want to make sure that this sound is attached somewhere in our first-person controller. So if we click the little arrow there and then right click and create empty and then right click and rename, and we'll call this sounds. And within there again, let's right click, create empty, and let's rename this one to just effects again, and then under effects again, create empty, and we will rename this to ding 001 and just drag and drop ding 001 onto that game object. Now you can see the way this is working now. It's the whole parent-child thing going on. So ding 01 is an object of effects, which is an object of sounds, which is an object of first-person controller. Now it may seem a little bit confusing at first, but it's a nice way of keeping things neat and tidy rather than having objects all over the place. Plus, it also means that whenever first-person controller moves, any objects attached to it will also move with it relative to their position in the first-person controller. So 000 on ding 01 means that it is going to be center of effects, which means that's going to be center of sounds, which means that will be center of the first-person controller. So here in the audio source component, we have a couple of things. Firstly, let's untick play on awake. What this does is stops the sound from playing straight away whenever we start the game because we don't want that to happen. We don't need to worry about too much here. We don't want it to loop. We just want it to be once whenever we command it to happen in the script. You can change the volume and pitch here. Sometimes they can be quite important. It just depends what kind of effect you're going for. I'm going to leave everything as default here for now, but please feel free to have a play around, see what you think is best for the style of sound you want here. So let's get down to business. Let's head into our script again. And let's open up Gem Rotate in Visual Studio. And all we need to do here is define just another variable to say this is the audio sound. And we can do that by going underneath the rotate speed variable and typing public. Again, we want public because we want to be able to deal with it in the inspector panel within Unity itself. So the type is going to be audio source. And that's all one word with a capital A and a capital S. So remember, case sensitivity is vital when it comes to scripting. And let's just call this collect sound and a semicolon. So you can see what is happening here. Things are coming together quite nicely because it's a case of defining everything you're going to need within the script here at the top. And although technically we won't need this, I'm going to input it in here just to kind of show you how all of this is going to work. I'm going to do public and I'm going to do a type, another different type this time, which is going to be a game object. So game object, and that is a capital G, capital O. And this game object is going to be the actual gem itself. So we'll just put the gem, semicolon. Now, theoretically, you don't really need this, but I'm just going to show you how this works, and then we can kind of utilize the script better once we've seen this. Now, we don't need to deal with void update because that is rotating itself. What we do need is a new method, which will be void on trigger enter. And the trigger enter thing is basically whenever the player hits it. So on trigger enter, and it's filled that in there. We don't need that private. We'll leave collider other in there, so that's fine. What we need to do is as soon as our player hits this, we want to basically play that sound. So we can do collect sound dot play, open close bracket, semicolon, and at that exact moment we need the gem to disappear. So we can do that by doing the gem dot set active false, semicolon, and save the script. And if you ever have any problems with the scripts that we're writing, you can get them on the downloads and assets section of our website again. I'll upload this script, even though it's kind of modified from the last episode. I'll re-upload this updated version, so you won't have any problems there. If we go back to Unity, we can see here it's thinking about the script, and it looks good, no errors. So if we go to our gem here, and we can see, yep, rotate speed 1, and we can also see collect sound, and the gem has appeared. So the collect sound is going to be that ding 001, and make sure we drag across the object rather than the file in the assets. So bring that over, and the gem is going to be the actual gem itself, straight there. Now we have two different objects here. Now you will notice that the mesh itself is the one that has the collider. So I'm going to turn off the mesh collider, and I'm going to attach, let's see if we can attach a different collider to the base object, the old single cut. So if we go to add component, go to physics, and go to, let's have a box collider for now. You can see nothing is really happening here. Now, theoretically, you can increase the size, but I think if we double click, yes. So what's going on here, basically, the long and short of it is the entire collider seems to be encompassing a larger area than what it is. And we can see this green line here is technically the collider. Now, the collider is what stops us walking into things and stops us falling through things. And although we want to walk through this, we do kind of need it to be a collider, but we can use a trigger. Now, I am going to decrease the size of this massively, and you can use different types of colliders. It's up to you what you want to use. Generally, though, I like to use box colliders, especially when it comes to more intricate shaped objects. If you have a large object with a lot of tries in, that's going to kind of weigh on the system quite a bit, especially if it's something so simple as a gem and it's got several hundred sides. You may still be better off using a box collider rather than a mesh collider. So the mesh collider is what, how can I put it? It encompasses the entire object perfectly rather than puts a box around it. So what we'll do is we'll change this collider size to 0.1 by 0.1 by 0.1. And if we double click again, we can see it's basically getting there. So we just need to kind of shrink it yet again, and we can probably do this by 0.4, 0.04, 0.04. So it's a little bit outside, a little bit bigger than it needs to be, but obviously you can play around with it as much as you need to. It's all dependent on what you want to do. As I say, you could perhaps use a mesh collider, but I tend to use box colliders in cases like this, that it doesn't really matter too much. So if we press play now, we should be able to walk over here. If we actually tick is trigger. Sorry, that's my fault there. I was talking about triggers as well. So we need to tick is trigger right there, and then we can head over and we should be able to collect. There we go. And we've collected it, and it's played the sound and it's disappeared. So that's how you can advance the script a little bit further. Now, when I said about this, the gem object, what you can do is put a double slash there to kind of turn that green. And what that does is makes an annotation and just makes the script think that isn't a line of code, it's just a note. And instead of having the gem.setActive, we can simply put this in lowercase, and that will turn blue. When we put this in a script, it basically means whatever object the script is attached to. So when we say this, it means this gem. Oh, okay, of course. So it's saying, yeah, it doesn't particularly like that. Sometimes it can get a little bit silly. I do believe in some version, maybe mono develop, it did work to some degree, and as I say, that's why sometimes it might be best to use the reference the actual object itself. I mean, we could always try double slash. I mean, it depends how things really want to work. I don't think that's going to work at all. Yeah, as expected. But you see what I mean about having to maybe use this as a reference to the object itself. It not only helps you understand it a little bit better, but you know, it's much easier. You're not going to get any errors, at least this way. But as I say, referring to it as this sometimes can be the best option. So let's put a semicolon at the end there. So, as I said, this is a perfect opportunity to show where errors occur. So we saw here in the console that errors appeared because it didn't quite recognize what we were trying to do. So that was kind of my intention here, to kind of show this is where we can see the errors. This is where the problems will lie. If you ever have any problems with scripting, always check the console and it will tell you where the problem lies. So now we have the script working again. We can see, even though all the errors have been fixed, we can still perform that action of collecting that gem. So let's move on. Let's have something a little bit more cool now. Let's have some water. Now, water is something cool in Unity, and lucky for us, it's kind of already built in, mainly in the standard assets. If you remember, we brought in standard assets and we had characters. So if we right click in our assets and go to import package and go to environment, it will just take a couple of minutes, or a couple of seconds I should say, to bring this across. And if we click import, it will bring in what we want, at least, because we want the water. Now what we'll do is, when this is imported, we'll create a little dip in our terrain and basically bring in some water, and it's as simple as that. Now feel free to explore maybe the asset store or elsewhere on through Google maybe for different types of water, but generally the water that you get within Unity is pretty decent. So let's zoom out a touch, and I'm going to paint this area. I think I'm going to use this tool, brush size decrease. Let's paint this area all here, and we'll have a little bit of maybe a pond somewhere here. So if we head to the raise and lower terrain, and I'm going to stay on this one. Let's increase the brush size a little. I'm going to hold down shift and just click once to make a dip. Now we can't really see too much now, but it will become apparent that there is a dip there when we bring in our water. So if we go to our environment within our standard assets, water, and we'll go just in water, prefabs, and we can either use daytime or nighttime. Because we've got a lot of light here, we'll use daytime. So we can just bring it in. Simple as that. And let's increase or decrease the water level just by dragging up and down. So maybe there. I might make this a little bit more of an odd shape. So if I go on the terrain and choose this again, brush size a bit smaller, and I'm going to decrease it just a little there. I think I may need to increase the size of the water, so we can do it by selecting the water and increasing to maybe 32 by 32. And you can see it fills the hole quite nicely. Let's head over there and have a quick look in the game view. Great. So we've got like a little sort of pond going on now. So last thing we're going to do is let's take a quick look at objects and making them look a little bit more realistic than this cube that we have here. So I'm going to use this cube that we originally created. I'm going to bring it down to the terrain. So bring it down. Let's decrease the size back to 1 by 1 by 1. And I'll bring it this way a touch, this way. And I'm going to bring in some more textures. So let's close up some of these folders down here so we can see. And in our textures folder, let's bring in the rock and wall. So drag and drop into Unity. And same as what we've done previously, I'm going to take this wall 001, hold Control, press D, and I'm going to rename it to wall 001 underscore N. And I'm going to change this to a normal map. And we can remember how to do that. Texture type to normal map, and let's just click apply. Let's drag wall onto the object, click on the object, click down to our material, and then add the normal map right there. And I'm going to change it to grayscale and apply. So let's increase the size of this cube now to be a bit more like a wall. So scale, let's have it, we'll keep it as 1. Let's increase the height to 5, and let's increase the length across to probably 15. Maybe a bit too big. Let's have it as 10. Okay, that looks okay. Not too bad now, actually. Nice simple wall. So I'm going to bring this wall over here and send it back to probably about there. Bring it up a touch. That should do. So I'm going to play around with the normal map now because it looks a little bit frosty. I'm not entirely sure I like this whole frosty look of it. So I'm going to decrease the bumpiness quite a bit and re-click apply. And we can see that it is changing. So I'm going to change it right down again and click apply. Okay. So it's starting to look a little bit better. And we can literally hold Control, press D, duplicate, snap it together. So the snap settings I did then was holding Control. And if we go to Edit and click on Snap Settings, we can see here, I like to keep mine always set as 0.25. What this basically does is when we hold Control, it moves any object 0.25 at a time rather than free moving it. Feel free to set it to 1, 0.5, whatever you want. So we have a nice little wall there now. It's not fantastic, but we're getting into things, and I like where this is going. You'll notice we also included this rock 001. So I'm going to use this little texture now. Hold Control, press D, rename it to rock 001 underscore N, and I'm going to change that to a normal map and apply. And let's click from grayscale actually. And what I'd like to do here is change some of this texture on the terrain to the rock. And we've been through this, so let's take 30 seconds to quickly go through everything again. Rock into there, normal map into there, click on add, and we can paint the rock like so. So I like this rock more than I like this texture here. But I'd like to keep all the textures because I like to blend things as much as possible to make it look a little bit better. So the last thing I'd like to do before we end this tutorial is shadows. Now if we go to directional light, by default I don't think the shadow type is set to any sort of shadow, it just has no shadows. So if we click drop down I should say, and click either hard or soft shadows, you'll see we now have shadows. And depending on whatever rotation we have, the shadows move with it. So there we go. Now I quite like how this is looking. If we press play, let's have a quick exploration within the game. Looks pretty decent. So what I would recommend now before the next episode is you take the time now to work out how you want your game to look. I recommend working out how you want the materials on these objects to look. For example, if we change the metallicness of the wall, you can see how that has an effect on the wall itself. Now, although it looked frosty to begin with, it looks, at least if we set the metallic quite high, we can see how much of an effect it's having. And we can also do this real time in the game. So there, if we have high metallic, low smoothness, you can see how this wall now looks. So these are the sort of things I recommend playing around with, just to kind of get your game looking how you want. So next time, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at some UI. And what UI is on-screen elements, i.e. A cursor. So we'll look at a cursor, we'll get it going kind of dynamic. So if we look over something, it'll have more to it. And we'll also look at something called raycast. And raycast is a way of determining how far we are away from an object. And that's going to be very, very important when we come to collecting things and want to maybe open doors or whatever else. So guys, until that next episode, thank you very much for watching.